I declare open this public hearing of the Legislative Assembly Legal and Social Issues Committee inquiry into increasing the number of registered organ and tissue donors.
The best situation is where we speak to the family and their loved one is registered and they've had a conversation, so they know what their loved one would have wanted.
One of the things we think is a partial solution to the registration process is to avoid a two-step process. In our submission, we talked about a data bridge. There needs to be an API that when you click a link on any government website, automatically you're registered with Medicare. It can't be click a link, open up a web page and get your Medicare card out. We lose lots and lots and lots and lots of people who want to register. So we think that's one of the biggest problems.
For example, Spain, which is typically thought of as an opt-out country, they had mandated sort of presumed consent. So there's no register as such, so you can't opt out in Spain. There's presumed consent, which legislation was enacted in 1988, and then it took 10 years for organ donation rates to increase in Spain, and that was felt to be largely due to organisation within the sector. Some of the things that we've already started to do through the national program in Victoria and other parts of the country.
And so there's a recommendation to all clinical staff about how the donation conversation should be had, and that's about making sure that everyone be given the opportunity, that every time someone's approaching death that their registry be checked, that when you're having a conversation with family members that be done by a trained requester, and usually that trained requester should be someone that's separate to the treating clinical team. And so there's all these recommendations that have really been guided by data that shows what the best outcomes for in terms of getting consent for donation that will ultimately lead to transplantation.
When we discuss donation with families, some of the reasons that they say no is because they don't want to wait the time, the 1 to 2 days. So I think there does need to be information for donors and families that it is a process and that there are ante-mortem interventions that we need to do to ensure safety so that we can find recipients. So I think that we do lose consent due to some of the unknown because it's not an informed decision for people.
The Austin at their palliative care unit in 8 South had a tremendous change a number of years ago. It was a couple of new staff members came in and said, is the conversation happening with families? And so very often the conversation wasn't happening. So Sheely, by having that conversation, has incredibly improved the amount of donations. And now 8 South are well and above our greatest referrers for eye tissue.
People have a connection with have a connection with their eyes. Again, I'll bring the bones and the kidney. No one has an intimate connection with their bones, but the eyes are where we see each other, where we feel each other, where we think about each other, and where we see our loved ones. And so for a lot of people, the eyes are who you are. And so for people who have that cultural connection with their eyes, that's where that reluctance comes in. However, we have more eye donors in this country than anything else.
Make it easy. We've invested a lot in our digital presence, so the ability to make an appointment, cancel an appointment, do it on your phone, find where your nearest donor centre is, see which ones are free, even look at some predicted wait times. Make it easy, and people will then generously give their time. If you make it complicated, that altruism just moves down the list a bit in terms of priorities in your life if it's just too hard.